Hi, this is Carter from Crystal Dagger Horsemanship, and I would like to talk to you today about a conversation that everyone loves to have with someone that they hate is whether or not to blanket your horse. Now, the number one reason that I blanket my that I blanket my horses is to get people to shut up. My general rule of thumb is under 20 degrees for a sustained period, or if there's going to be freezing rain. The freezing rain part is more or less because I feel bad when they have ice dripping off of their back. Underneath of it is generally pretty dry, and it's warm because they have an undercoat. So when they start getting ice and snow built up on their back, that pretty much just says that their body is in good enough condition for it to insulate itself. A few key factors about whether or not to blanket your horse depends on their fat content, how used they are to the climate that you're from, and whether or not they have access to 24-hour feed. The 24-hour feed makes a big difference. When their gut's full, it stays warm because basically the hay works like an insulator. It traps the heat inside their intestines. If it's not, then yes, they're not having the calorie intake that allows them to produce the heat metabolically, and they're not having the benefit of the larger mass inside their body staying warm. There's a few other things that go into account too. Katie over here eats 6 quarts of performance feed, about 1.5 quarts of balancer twice a day. We have 24-hour hay. I'm constantly throwing out hay nets. And she has a whole bunch of pasture. And she barely manages to maintain this amount of weight. I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to need to toss her on some beet pulp or some alfalfa cubes again, like when she got here and she was a little bit thin. And then we have Maeve, who basically can smell the dish of food and end up looking pregnant. So you can't lump every horse into the same category like you do people. I mean, I can eat two small meals a day, and I have no problem maintaining my weight. Other people would eat what I do and end up 400 pounds. And there's other people that would eat what I do and die because they didn't have enough calories to support their metabolism. So making blanket statements about whether or not to blanket your horse doesn't really make sense. If you're bringing a horse up from Florida who's used to it being, 60 degrees, 50 degrees at night in the winter, up here to Maine and it's 0, they're not going to have the coat and the undercoat to deal with that, nor is their body used to producing heat from calories to make them warm up. It's, in my opinion, fairly ignorant for people to make the snap decision comments that blanketing a horse is cruel or not blanketing a horse is cruel. I do have one qualm, and it's more for safety concerns to the horse than anything else. When you start blanketing horses and it gets over about 50 degrees, 40, 50 degrees, if they start getting active, there isn't really a place for that heat to start dissipating through sweat because you got the majority of their body covered off. They'd be much better off being able to sweat and have that evaporate off them because that's how their body gets rid of the heat than they would be getting stuck in a blanket, getting themselves worked up, acting foolish, playing in the field. There's more correlation to young horses and older ones because they're just going to stand at the hay net and eat all day. But I'm sure you guys get what I'm getting at. Basically what I'm asking is for people to stop picking teams with it and look at it as an individual circumstance. Your Arabians, your Thoroughbreds, Akhal-Tekis, any hot-blooded breeds, even some Andalusian stuff. Horses with thin skins are going to need blankets sooner than a horse like Maeve or anything drafty. Ponies, fjords. I mean, my God, Shetland ponies grow a blanket that's good enough to cover 2 horses with. You could throw them out at -40 and they're going to be fine.